Right, welcome, hello, and thank you for coming, especially thank you for coming back after the last session. Hopefully that was useful, but we're going to crack straight on with our next session. And this session is going to be a bit more interactive. You're going to have much more things to do. So you will need to touch your screen and do access to your computer itself. Hopefully it will be self-explanatory when I say what we're doing. If you have any issues, I'll give you an option to do it just using a piece of paper as well. So I'm going to start by sharing this presentation. Hopefully you can all see that. And this is the aim for this session. So our session 2, making the best use of what you have. And we're actually going to start with a poll. So I've got just a poll here. So a question, so I don't know if you can see that poll. I'll launch it in a minute. But the questions are basically just to get a grounding of where you are at. How much time do your learners spend outside each day around the year? So this is generalizing over the whole year. So what's an average, do you think, in a normal year? Not including anything odd, so not just including your lessons, not including your playtime or anything like that. And there's options there. And the next one is, how do you rate your outdoor space? So what do you think of your school grounds? So I'm just going to launch that. That's brilliant. We got an awful lot of you going out every day and a few times a week. That is fantastic. And do you think your school grounds are good and average to good? Okay, fantastic. So if I just get rid of that, so we've got 67% saying they go out every day. That is fantastic. And in terms of what we're going to do today, give you an opportunity to audit your school grounds, your skills in terms of outdoor learning, and give you some ideas of how to upskill your staff. So you may be really skilled in outdoor learning, but your staff may be a little less confident, a little less ideas out there. We're also going to look at auditing your learning resources. It's not just your school grounds, also any resources you might have, and looking at any ideas for learning resources that are going to make your life a lot easier, but also that I would recommend. And then just we're going to have a quick video at the end on how best to use your grounds all year round. So all this information, you are going to be doing some practical things online. And so if you are kind of losing track of what we're doing on the screen because you're concentrating on that, don't worry, because you'll have a recording of this sent to you as well. Okay, so we're going to start with doing an activity to start auditing your school grounds. And what we're going to do is we're going to use Google Earth to create a map of your area, your school grounds. And we're also going to start looking at it in terms of all year round and how you can use it to the best of its ability. So I'm just going to end this show because I'm going to stop sharing this because I'm going to start sharing Google Earth. Now, you might have Google Earth on your desktop. So you might have Google Earth, Google Pro, or you might have it on you just using the website version. Now I'm just going to try and use it with Pro. So if you've got Google Pro, Google Earth Pro, all you have to do is to type in the name of your school on the search bar, click search, and it will take you directly to your school. I'm just using a local school because it's down the road and I know it very well. If you haven't got Google Earth, so if you haven't got Google Pro, then if you go online and just search for Google Earth, can you see that picture as well?
Yes.
Brilliant. So again, just go on and search for your school and then it will take you to your location. Either way, you just want a picture of your school on your screen. And then what you are going to do is you are going to create a snapshot of that. Now, how you do that depends on what operating system you've got. If you're on a phone or an iPad, you're just going to take a screenshot. If, like me, you're on a Mac, you need to do Control, Shift, and 4, and then you get a little cursor up. And what I want you to do is to take a screenshot of all of your school grounds. So I know the school grounds goes around this perimeter here. So this is the majority of mine. So this school grounds picture now is in my clipboard. Now, if you're doing this online, so on the website, you could do exactly the same. But on Pro, the good thing about this is that you can just click on File, press Print, and it will generate you a nice map, and then you can just save that, and then you can edit it, and you can call it a name and stuff. Before you do that, what I want you to make sure your map is orientated correctly, so that north is at the top. Now that's really important because we're going to be looking at sun direction and things like that. So make sure north is at the top, and if you can, try and make sure, let's get rid of that one. if you look at your screen, you've got all these dials here. If you try and make sure you're directly above it, that's not so important, but just make sure that north is at the top. So if you click on north, it will automatically take north to the very top. So I'm going to let you get on with that. So I'm going to show you the instructions on that PowerPoint. So can you have a go at that? You've got basically about 2 minutes, or if that, to go and find your school on Google Earth and cut and paste it into a document and either save it on your desktop or save it in a file that you can then access, okay? And then we're going to open it in Paint. So if you want to open that in Paint straight away, you can do that. If you haven't got Paint, you can use Sketch, anything that you can write all over. And I know on your phone, you can actually press something and you can actually write on top of it, as long as you can write on that document. Is everyone clear with that?
Yeah.
Brilliant. If you haven't got a school, then choose a piece of ground that you would do open outdoor learning in that you're very familiar with, and you could do this activity and then use another location for it. Okay, so I'm going to just give you 2 minutes to just get that document ready.
Dawn, does it matter if we're not directly above it? My Google Earth doesn't want to put me above it.
Not
Is that
really.
okay?
It would if
Okay.
we were doing mapping, but this is just to get an idea of an audit. So no, it doesn't actually matter. As long as you're not on 3D view and going on sideways or anything like that. As long as
No,
you
I'm on 2D, I think.
no, that's
Oh, you've just solved my problem for me. Thank you.
oh, is that it? Oh, right, yeah. There you go.
Thanks.
Okay, so what we're going to do now is once you've got it into a document that you can actually edit. So if you open Paint or something that you can actually look at your picture on. Is everyone with me?
Yes.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Okay. Right, so you should have a picture of your school grounds in front of you, which is on a document that you can edit, such as Paint or whatever you're using, okay?
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to work through some activities. You can do this simultaneously with me if you like, but you will be given a couple of minutes to do it as well. But if you want to do it at the same time, that's fine, or if you want to watch the screen. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, now I can see all of it, we're going to think about location. Now we've got our north arrow here, so we know that north is at the top of your picture. So we're considering location of the sun throughout the day. Now, of course, the sun starts to rise in the east and it will set in the west. And because we're in the northern hemisphere, it will be around the south at midday at lunchtime. So what we're going to think about is locations where we might have some shade at different times of the day. So I'm just going to pick something that I can use to color in shade in the morning. So I'm going to call that the morning. And just having a look around here, the sun is going to be rising in the east. These trees here are going to be providing quite a lot of shade along that area there. That tree there is going to provide some shade, but it's in that person's garden, so that's no use in the morning. Over here, we've got some trees, and that's going to provide some shade behind here. We've got a tree here, which will provide a bit of shade in the yard in the morning there. That tree is going to provide a bit of shade in the yard there. And these trees are going to provide shade, but that's going to be in the driveway, so that's not much use. And then all the way along here in the woodland, of course, there's going to be shade pretty much in the middle of it. So that's my morning shade locations. Okay, so in the morning, if we've got high sun, probably in the summer, we know if we go to those locations, we're not going to get too hot. Then if we switch to another color, so this is going to be lunchtime. So it's going to be like midday sun. So you can see that this photo has actually been taken in the midday because that is where the shadow would be in the midday when the sun is in the south. So it's going to be causing shadows in the north. So that there is going to provide a shadow. So there's going to be a shadow over here for that tree, over here for that tree. And if you look behind the actual building of the school, this yard here is going to have some shade here during the lunchtime. This tree is providing shade in lunchtime. And again, we're going to have loads inside the woodland here and a bit here in front of those trees in this yard. And then lastly, we're going to think about the afternoon session. So an afternoon session, we're going to have the sun in the west, and that's going to be providing shade on the east side. So we're going to have it this is our building here, sorry. So this is going to be a bit of shadow in here because of the building. This building is going to provide shadow here. These trees are going to cause some nice shadow inside the yard there. And that's probably, oh, and these ones here will be providing a bit of shadow there. Okay, so that's providing us with shadow. Now this is going to help you, along with what you did last session with the muster points, to identify places where you want to go to avoid the sun at certain times of the year. Now obviously that's the most useful in the summertime. What we need to do next is probably more important, which is looking at the wind direction. So the wind direction is going to vary, but the prevailing wind is from the southwest. So we're going to put in a arrow showing our wind direction. We've then got our prevailing wind direction here. So thinking about a prevailing wind coming from the southwest, so majority of the time, thinking about where we can locate so that we're out of the wind. So if we've got a southwesterly direction wind, then pretty much on this location here, I'm going to use stars for these muster points. So these are muster points which will avoid the wind. So on this yard here, that's a bit big, we're going to be really sheltered by a southwesterly wind because the whole of the building is in between us and the wind direction. Okay, whereas if we were to put our muster point here in the middle of the grass here, then obviously the southwesterly wind is going to hit us if we are down here, because you won't have much in the way of a windbreak between you and the southwesterly direction. However, if you've got a northeasterly wind, which is likely to be very, very cold, then this direction, especially if you're closer to the trees here, might be good because your wind direction will be coming in and you'll be actually sheltered by the trees up here. So considering your muster points and your wind direction, you could decide we're going to have another muster point here. And this is going to, don't do that, Dawn. This is going to provide us with shelter from our northeasterly and our northwesterly wind coming in from these two directions. And that'll be a great place if it's really, really windy. Okay, right. So if you haven't done it already, on your map, can you annotate places where there is shadow in the different times of the day? So there'll be things that can provide shadow from the easterly direction, so things in the western side of them, and then where you get some shadow from a prevailing wind. Okay, so thinking about where you can hide from the wind, where you can hide from the sun in your school grounds. Okay, right, so hopefully you've got some ideas then of muster points, of locations, things, thinking about different times of the year where it might be a good place to stop and have your point where you start your activity, or where you might stay for your activity if the weather is really tricky. Now you need to think about mapping your exit rooms, exit points from your school. So again, if you're thinking about your classroom, if this is my classroom here, and I want to use this muster point, then that's fine because there's a direct exit there out to my exit point, to my muster point. That's going to be straightforward. The students won't have to worry about that. So if I say to them, right, we're going to muster in the backyard, they know to get their coats to go straight out that exit and straight to that muster point. If, however, we decided that it was really windy and we were going to have a muster point here in the top forest here in the forest school area, then you obviously do not want your students going out of this door, because they'll have to walk all the way around, and it would be much easier if they walked through the school. So they would then have to access it in that direction. So again, thinking about your routes, you know, your students, you'll say to them, right, we're going to the forest school area. They know to get their coats and then to line up by the front door, and then you can get them across into the forest school area. So as I said last time, it is a lot about training your students so they know where they're going. So you avoid this starbursting, you're losing them when you get them outside. They know where to go. They know the route there. So you knowing your route, you having that fixed in your mind, then you know where to send them. Okay, everybody got those, some exit routes?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Right, next thing you're going to do is you are going to map different environments. So we're thinking about the grounds as a resource now. So we're thinking about what have we got here that we could actually use in terms of teaching. So you could try and color in different things, or you could just draw lines on it. Or if you haven't got, if you think you've run out of room or it's starting to get a bit busy on your screen, you could literally put a piece of paper, draw the outline and start to write a list of what habitats you've got. So in terms of this location, Along this bottom here, obviously we've got huge woodland here, so we've got lots of trees. We've also got some open grassland areas with long grass, so that's going to provide us lots of plants and animals to study. We've also got shaded areas here, some quiet coochie areas, so it'd be great for storytelling, some atmospheric areas. We've also got some access. If you look here, we've got a dip here. This is almost like an amphitheatre, so that's somewhere where we could sit and have a story as well. So thinking about habitats, so it could be you've got different habitats, it could be you just got different features in your school grounds that would be useful for some kind of outdoor learning. So do a bit of annotating for your school grounds for those habitats. Okay, so hopefully you've got that on your map. So important directions, you've got your shade, your shelter, you've got muster points, you've got exit points, routes for this classroom, and your map should look something like that. And now we're getting on to looking at where we could identify some different habitats or environments. Okay, everyone with me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, right. Next thing you're going to do is continuing to annotate that map, or if you want to start writing this on a piece of paper with bullet points, you might end up getting a bit busy on your map. What we're going to do is we're going to look at locations for activities which require loose parts. So what loose parts are things like sticks, stones, pine cones, anything like that that might be a resource in your school grounds. So somewhere you think in your school grounds you might be able to find those things. So just identify those as areas that you might be able to do loose part activity or collect loose parts. Locations where you have lots of space, place where you can either run or get your students to go quite a long way without you losing sight of them, or build big constructions or big art projects. Locations where you know there are plants and animals that you can either analyze or just look through. Locations which are great for quiet activities, somewhere where you can get away from either roads or there's a bit of a windbreak between you and some of the classrooms or some of the outdoor areas for nursery, for example. And then lastly, locations which would be really good for story time or some quiet starter activities. So something that, yeah, again, you can get your class into one little area, but you're kind of surrounded by something. So it's got like a bit of a den or a bit of a location which is nicely surrounded. So have a go at listing or identifying those potential locations in your school grounds. Okay, right. So hopefully, this is a different school, by the way, in case you get confused. Some ideas now of what's potentially using your school grounds for, things like your resources. So we've got loose part areas that you could maybe do some den building, some long grass where you could do some sweep netting. So I just want you to have a look at those habitats that you've found. And I want you to think about what you do at school at the moment. Okay, so what you're trying to annotate now, you're auditing your outdoor space as you use it at the moment. So you've already identified places that have got different things. Now I want you to kind of cross-reference with what you actually do and use it for at the moment. So if you use your field for just PE and sports day, then write that in. If you've got woodland that you use for forest school, put that in. And just have a look and see which parts of your school grounds you are using, and kind of more importantly, which bits you are not using. So identify the locations of what you're using and also say what you are doing there. Now, you may just be aware of what you're doing with your class, maybe not the whole school, but if you can take some time to think, if you've seen or spoken to other members of staff to see what they're doing, see if you can annotate what's going on in your school at the moment using your school grounds. Okay, now this is a great activity to do with other members of staff, and usually when I do insets, we're face-to-face in whole schools. This is what we do, because sometimes it's you have one class or one member of staff who knows exactly where they go and what they do, but is unaware of what the other teachers are doing. So it's something that you might be aware of in terms of how you use your school grounds, but you may not be aware how the other key stages are using it or other members of staff. So this could be just relating to just your use of it, but it'd be great for you to then put this into your portfolio, but also take this to the rest of your staff and ask them, well, what do you use the school grounds for? Where do you go and what do you do there? And apart from sharing ideas of, you know, other people might be doing activities that you could probably copy and do as well, it also will hopefully get you to identify areas of your school grounds which tend to be overused and areas of your school grounds which aren't being used. And that will lead you into thinking about, right, well, why aren't we using those areas? Is it just because they're inaccessible? It's too dangerous to take them. We've got to get them across the yard, or we've got to go through other people's space. It's just not feasible. Or is it that that location, you can't have your students all in your one spot, so you can't see them because there's too many places for them to hide? It could be that there's just not resources there that you need, or that the ground just gets really wet and muddy. A lot of people have huge fields, but they never use them because they're just really wet most of the time. So this will hopefully get you to identify what's wrong with your grounds in terms of what you need to do in terms of improvement. Or if you think, oh, I'm fine with all the stuff that we're using, we don't need to use those other bits, then you don't need to worry about expanding on those or just doing some ground development. Right, what we're going to do now is, with all that information that you've just created, I'm going to put you into some breakout rooms. And what I want you to think about is, you can introduce yourself to the person with you in the breakout room. It might be twos or it might be threes, probably twos actually. And based on that activity that you've done, I want you to just discuss what resources your school grounds have. You can also see whether you found out that you had more than you thought, or whether it's actually highlighted, yes, there's a real lack here. Talk to the other person and see what you think is missing from your grounds. So if you're comparing to somebody else, they may have fantastic grounds, then it might be that, yes, there's things you'd like to have, but it could be that you just need to utilize some grounds in a slightly different way, and you might have something that just needs a bit of adaptation. So what's missing from your grounds? Obviously, you can't transplant a huge mature woodland overnight, but there's some things that we can do about that. And discuss what you use your school grounds for now. See if there's some commonality between the two, other similar things that you're both doing. And then thinking about what potential your school grounds could have now that you've audited it. So now you've seen locations and different habitats. Is there anything that you thought, oh, I've not used that? Well, what about, how could I use that? So thinking about ways in which you could actually increase your use of the school grounds. Fantastic. So that's everyone back. Thank you so much for doing that. I did pop in and listen in on some of your conversations, which was great. And what I'm hoping is that audit has been useful, and that means that you've started thinking about your school grounds as a potential for resources, and as a resource, but it might also have highlighted you may lack certain things. And there was a few conversations about shelters and things like that. Obviously, permanent shelters are going to be better if you want to go out in all weathers, but I do have a video on my YouTube channel on how to put up temporary shelters. So if you are thinking about putting up tarps and things, if you just go onto YouTube and look at #NatureDays, go on my teachers resources, then you'll find there's lots of resources there, but the one on shelters and putting up shelters for groups might be helpful for that. But yeah, permanent outdoor space with some shelter is really useful. The activity we've just done, you also obviously looking at your grounds, thinking about in terms of the wind direction and the rain as well. If the rain is coming, obviously we live in Wales, rain rarely comes down, it goes sideways. So thinking about those locations, just saying that the wind direction is going to blow the wind, it's also going to blow the rain in that direction. So thinking about locating yourself so that the wind is not going to fire in from the side. Also, it's not going to blow your voice away. Thinking about allocating, well, where you're going to direct yourself. So just some tips about where you stand so that which was in the last session, but thinking about that in terms of your long-term muster points and where you undertake your activities when the weather is not in your favor, thinking about using wind breaks and also using the wind to blow your voice over to your students. And if you do have some outdoor space that's like a wall, that can sometimes be even better than a roof when it's raining. because the rain will come sideways. So sometimes you've got something with a roof, and in fact that roof is not providing you with any shelter because the rain is coming in at an angle. So that's why having that audit of what you've got in your grounds is really useful to think, right, where do I go? Oh yeah, I remember there's that bit there is going to be facing, right, we've got a wind coming in from the northwest. That's going to be the right place for us to go today. So it's something that you're going to build on, hopefully, and have some skills when we start developing using your outdoor space a bit more. Right, fantastic. So I'm just gonna, what have I done? Start sharing again. Okay, so what we're going to be thinking about next, you've audited your school grounds, and to be honest, that's really just a really brief audit of your school grounds. It's something that you could do in much more detail, especially looking at your staff and see how they use it. What we're going to move on now is thinking about a skills audit. So we're talking about outdoor learning skills. Obviously, you'd like to do this with all your staff to find out what skills they have in outdoor learning, but as I only have you at the moment, so we're going to think about the outdoor learning skills that you have. So we're talking about you as an individual member of staff now, not as the whole of your school. So what I'd like you to do is go back to the poll that some of you filled in there. I wonder if I can relaunch it. Yeah, I'm going to relaunch this poll. And can you have a go at question 3 and 4? So this is looking at your skills. So if you just want to, you can do the top 2 questions. We did them earlier, but I've only realized you have to do separate polls for separate polls. So, but you're looking at question 3 and 4 specifically. We're looking at how confident you think of your staff are. Obviously, it's your point of view at being outdoors. And then what skills do you think you have to undertake and inspire effective outdoor learning? So you as a teacher, but also as an inspiration for other members of staff. And you could do more than one for the multiple choice. For the question 4, you could have everything there. I think that's everyone. Right, I'm going to end that and share the results. Hopefully you can see that. So thinking back, so looking at our skills, you're very lucky. You've got most of your staff are confident being outdoors. Foundation phase, 33% are confident. So we've got a lot of you feeling quite confident, which is great. So most of them going out, but most of your staff are confident, and not surprisingly, 33% say the foundation phase are the most confident. In terms of your skills, loads have got ideas. That's fantastic. Enthusiasm, confidence, planning, organization, loud voice, like being outdoors, excellent. So these are all skills, but what is really important in terms of instilling confidence in your staff and hopefully in you is to understand that outdoor learning is just teaching. So all those skills that you've got as a teacher are all transferable to being outdoors. So there are many more skills that you bring to the table. Just because there isn't outdoor learning associated with it, it's brilliant skills that you need to be an outdoor learning provider, to be a teacher outdoors. So I just put in a few of those there, but in fact, you've got so many more skills because you are teachers. So what we're going to think about now is, let me share that one, is just some skills you think you could have to, kind of inspire the rest of your staff. So if they aren't confident, or if they're feeling they can't go outdoors because they're not outdoor learning teachers and they don't think that's their location, ways in which we can make that a bit better. So what I've got here is what we call a woo clap. Now, this is the first time we've done this, so hopefully it will work. So I'm going to launch this app. First question, what skills do you have to undertake and inspire effective outdoor learning? Can you just put in what words you think, what skills you have? We've said some of them in the Zoom survey, but if you could think of any skills that you've got, which are going to help you to be an effective outdoor teacher, you can put as many words as you like in there. And then the second question is, what skills do you lack? So what skills do you think would be really useful outdoors that you just don't think you've got at the moment? So first one is, what skills do you have? And the other one, what do you lack? Should be able to see this word cloud being created. So we've got enthusiasm, confidence, time, lack of time. Yes, that's why I ask for my birthday every year. So what skills do you have? We've got enthusiasm, passion. So what you might find, and it was clear there, was that confidence is one of the biggest issues in terms of outdoor learning. And if you want to inspire your staff so that they're empowered to use outdoor learning, the best way you can do that is to upskill them and instill some more confidence in their ability to teach outdoors. And if we do a skills audit for your staff, then they will hopefully work out that, in fact, an awful lot of the skills they've already got are completely transferable to outdoor learning. So it's more about their attitude and helping them to identify those strengths and then identifying places where they need a bit more training. So we're going to have a look at doing a skills audit for yourselves, and then that's something that you can carry on doing with your staff at a later date. So I'm just going to share the screen. These are the questions that you could ask yourself if you want to do a skills audit. So what I want you to do is take a good 5 minutes and just note down the answers to this question for yourself. So we're trying to dig right down into how you feel about the outdoors, basically, and then what kind of you can bring from your experience into the outdoor learning environment. So the first question is, what is your vision of the outdoor environment and its possibilities and opportunities it provides for learners? Now, if you think about the new curriculum, the first thing you had to do was to undertake a vision for your school. And I think that undertaking a vision of your outdoor learning is vital to actually impart a whole school approach or to inspire your staff. So if you haven't got a vision, then you wouldn't really push yourself further than just doing what you do at the moment. So what is your vision? How can you see outdoor learning being really good in your school, being embedded, and you being sector leading in this? Next thing is, do you expect to be outside whatever the weather? And do you value the learning opportunities that occur in different weather conditions? Or are you one of those ones that, yeah, going outside as long as it's nice? So thinking about you as a person, can you actually cope with being outside in different weathers, and does that, feel a dread in you? Or do you think that, yes, that's actually an opportunity to provide an opportunity for my students to learn something different? Next, do you know what activities work best outside and how to use the outdoors to inspire teaching and learning? So do you think, oh, I'm one of those ones that have to just take what I'm doing inside and take it outside? Or am I very good at finding the learning in the outdoor environment? Next, do you know where your outdoor learning resources are stored? A lot of you were talking about resource boxes, which we will talk about later. But yeah, if you wanted to do an activity, would you know where to go to get the resources? And I mean in your school, I don't mean the shops, I mean in your school, where would you find it? And lastly, do you plan outdoor learning into your topics, in your long-term and into your short-term planning? So this is think about what you do at the moment. So if you can jot down where you are with those just on a piece of paper, I'll give you a good 7 minutes for that, because that's quite a lot to ask, and I'll leave that on the screen so you can see those. Okay, hopefully you've got some answers to some of those, so don't worry if you haven't got as much detail as you'd like. But this is just part of a skills audit. Now this spreadsheet here is what I'm going to give you as part of your in-school task, your homework, basically, if you want to try and audit the rest of your staff. So it's got the same questions as we've just been through, but thinking about what happens now in your school and who's doing it. So we're talking about the whole school now. So which members of staff tend to be in a certain area? Maybe you've got your best skills in foundation phase, which tends to be the case, and then key stage 2 tends to not use the ground so much because they've got so much in terms of curriculum to get through, but also maybe don't feel so confident. And then thinking about what you're doing well. So it may be that you have a fantastic base in foundation phase, and so you can work with that. And then where have you got your less effective outdoor learning teaching? And then what limits this? Why do your key stage 2 not go out as much? Is it a lack of ideas, or the fact that they don't necessarily think that the outdoors is providing the opportunities that their students need for the curriculum content you need to cover? Is it lack of resources? Is it staffing? Is it space? Is it something about your local area? And then you can think about timings as well. And then how could you make it better? So we're coming to do some finding some solutions to the problems. Is there ways of just readdressing issues in your school grounds, increasing your resource base, or is it a skills share that you could do the foundation phase with the key stage 2, or a bit of extra skills upskilling that you need to do with other members of staff? So what you're going to do now is you're going to go back into breakout rooms. I'm going to probably change them again so you've got smaller people, so you'd probably get in groups of 2. And what I want you to do is to discuss what you found out from that skills audit about yourself and where you think your skills lie. So be honest, you know, if you think you're really good at it and you've got some fantastic skills, then do, you know, shout about it. That you need to be aware of your strengths, where you really have great strengths, but also where you need to do a bit of development, and work out based on that, are your strengths or your lack of strengths, is it about ideas or is it about confidence? And then we can divide it into those 2 categories. We can then work on ways in which of improving one or the other of those. So I'm just going to put you into breakout rooms. Welcome back, everyone. I felt bad stopping you all having lovely chats talking about everything. It is nice to share ideas and what goes well with different schools, but unfortunately we need to crack on. So hopefully you've got some ideas now of whether you need some extra help in terms of your confidence, or whether it's just some ideas that you need. And obviously when you do that with your staff, you'll get some ideas then of where your best skills are, or whether you need to instill some more skills, whether you need to bring in some expert advice, or whether it's just resources that you need to source. So what we're going to be moving on to now is what we do with those results. So once you've done that skills audit, what will you actually do with it? And it's a very useful set of data that you've got, but if you don't do anything with those results of your audit, then there's actually no point in doing it. So what you should identify with that audit is which of your year group teachers have the most skills in terms of specific ones to outdoor learning. So obviously you'll have your whole school teaching skills, but you may have something specific that your teachers might have real skills that you might be able to then share with other members of the staff, and identifying what they have got and also the lack of skills in other members of staff, and if you can upskill them, thinking about ways in which you can do that. And again, as part of the homework, what I've got you to do is to try and identify those skills gaps within your staff, then to try and identify some training or some opportunities to share your skills across the phases in your school. So try and match up the lack of skill with the skilled member of staff and see if there's anywhere you can share those skills, so you can basically train yourselves, which is what, you know, there's the focus on all the time now, is sharing within your staff. And then if it's anything that's just confidence, then hopefully that's where I come in, and I'm going to try and instill some more confidence in you. So what I want you to do next is I want you to get a piece of paper. So a piece of paper, and on that piece of paper, I want you to draw a circle like that. Okay. And in that circle, I want you to write down the benefits of outdoor learning, or benefits of outdoor learning. And I want you to put at least 8 lines coming off the circle. Okay. Now, you could have more than 8, but we're going to start with 8. And I want you to write down as many benefits of outdoor learning as you can on that piece of paper. So you've got 3 minutes to write down as many benefits as you can of outdoor learning. Okay, and stop there. Hopefully you've got 8 things at the very least, I'm hoping. But so this is your starting point for instilling confidence in your staff. So getting them to understand why we do it. And this is really important that your senior management really buy into this. So hopefully in your benefits of outdoor learning, you have identified some of these key aspects associated with the 4 purposes. So have a look at that. How many of those really tie into those 4 purposes that we went through last week? Do we have any links? Can you see an obvious link there, or are we talking about something that's not linked to the 4 purposes? If you want to write in the chat, so if you get to the chat function, if you want to write anything there that you've identified as a benefit of outdoor learning, which leads very nicely into teaching the 4 purposes, so we can link up those 2 aspects. So on the chat in Zoom, just anything you've got there. Healthy, risk, yep, all in the 4 purposes. Problem solving, yes. Real life problems. See, we're pretty much covering them all. Inquisitive thinking, fantastic. So taking this to your senior management and say, look, these are the benefits of outdoor learning. So this is why we do it. And in fact, it so links in with the new curriculum. You've got, yes, as you say, hands-on, authentic, and also all the health and well-being. You're instilling that love of the environment. That's all about that ethical side as well, the sustainability. It's so easy to link up those benefits, and that's your why. This is why we need to do outdoor learning, because we can teach so much of the 4 purposes in terms of with the new curriculum. Then what I want you to do is to change that benefits on your sheet of paper to the intent of outdoor learning. So you can just draw a line through benefits and write intent of outdoor learning. Okay, and if we change it to intent, what we're identifying now is what we will get out of it. So again, referring to the 4 purposes, when we undertake outdoor learning, we will actually get better mental health, collaborative working, a love of the environment, healthy natural environment, hands-on opportunities, physical health, team building, collaboration, all those things that you've put around there, we will get out of outdoor learning. So we've just identified why we're doing it. And then what we've done is actually covered the whole of our 4 purposes, the whole of our curriculum, using the outdoors. So that hopefully should instill them confidence in the fact that even if you're doing it in Key Stage 2 and you think, oh gosh, I've really got to get that maths done inside, you are going to be covering so many of those 4 purposes that it is worthwhile going out there and spending that time. And as long as it's effective outdoor learning, you will be covering an awful lot of the curriculum, you know, indirectly or directly through the use of the outdoors. So in terms of confidence building, the next thing you need to instill with your staff is obviously how. So you need to teach them how to undertake outdoor learning. And the way you do that is to get them to view outdoor learning in the same way as their in-classroom learning. So teaching and learning remains constant, and the evidence of the impact that you are having when you undertake outdoor learning is shown in their class learning. So for example, I do these insets to schools a lot, and a lot of schools identify some key reasons why they are struggling in terms of making outdoors effective in terms of their learning and meaningful. The 5 main things they tend to say is they don't know how to evidence the learning, they don't know how to plan curriculum content, they don't know how to assess progress, they don't know how to adapt activities, and they don't know how to manage behavior. And what I tend to do, and this is a good thing you can do with your staff, is that looking at the problems or looking at the issues they have with taking out learning outdoors or doing outdoor learning, think about what they use in school already, what strategies they have to deal with those problems. So for example, adapting activities so they make them more effective. Well, you're doing that all the time in school, differentiating and talking about the different pedagogies that you're using. And all of that can be then transferred to the outdoors. So if you look at this picture here, what I do is I give them their issues, their worries about outdoor learning, and then get them to come up with ways in which they do it inside, and then see how many of those are directly transferable to the outdoor environment. And if you look at these pictures, all those Post-it notes were all on the top. And I said, how many of them can you move down into using them outdoors? And you can see that the majority of the activities that they use inside, the strategies they use, can be transferable to the outdoors as well. And what you do then is they realize that outdoors is just a change of location. Their skills that they've got, their skill sets as teachers and TAs are just the same. You just need to train your students so that they realize that outdoors is the same expectations. We expect them to be on their best behavior, to have the great growth mindset, and therefore you can just use the same strategies. You'll have the same ratios, you'll have the same staff. So just thinking about strategies you can use in school, taking them to transferable outside, will hopefully give them confidence to think, oh, actually, yeah, I do that already. I can do that outside. Big problem with assessment. Staff seem to worry, especially Key Stage 2, well, where's the evidence? You know, we've been outside in the rain and I didn't take any photos, and, you know, I can't prove that I've learned anything this morning. you never do one activity in isolation. You will build on that. That's the whole point of your planning. So when you go back inside, any work that they do as a follow-up, that is your evidence. So the fact that they haven't taken their books outside and written anything down while you were out in the rain, inspiring them, when you come back in and they write a brilliant story, that's your evidence. So you do not have to change what you're doing. Assessment. There is no point in you coming up with a new assessment framework for outdoor learning, because you need to know about the whole child. You have your own, or you are developing at the moment, your own assessment framework for your pupils in your school. So when you're doing that, you're going to use the outdoors as just another location. You don't have a different assessment framework for PE. So why not do it with the outdoor learning as well? So it's just the location you're changing. The strategies that you're using, you just transfer them and you carry on doing everything you normally do. You're just doing it outside. So hopefully they'll have the confidence then to just bring their knowledge and skills that they're using inside and use them in an outdoor environment. Okay, if you can, have a look at the list of skills that you wrote down that you said you lacked in the last activity. Have a think about skills or activities or strategies that you use in class that you could actually just transfer into the outdoors, and that would probably deal with that issue of the lack of that skill, because there's not a lot of new skills that you need to learn to do outdoor learning. As a teacher, you are adaptable. You know how to differentiate. You know how to adjust your pedagogies. You have so many skills. See if any of those ones that you think are a lack are actually, no, you just haven't identified it as a skill that you've got in a different location. So see if you can work out some of those lacks of skills are actually something you have you just haven't identified it. So just take a minute to do that. So hopefully you've just realized how much of your skills that you've got are transferable to the outdoor space. And hopefully you realize that progress and learning found outside is identified through the work that you do inside as well. So you do not have to try and find these new skills. And you need to then instill that in your staff. So if you can identify them as lacking in confidence, you can hopefully get them to see that those strategies are transferable. If they're still worried, speak to your foundation phase staff, because they use the outside nearly as much as they do the inside, and ask them, do they actually change their strategies as they move from inside and outside? And I'm going to ask you, Anne-Marie, when you go outside with your continuous provision, do you actually change any of your teaching strategies when you're literally outside in a different environment compared to inside?
No, and it's a bit different now as well, because I've got year 2, 3, but obviously, you know, over the other side where they've got nursery up to year 2, the outdoor provision is absolutely 100% part of the classroom, and the same sort of rules apply, the same the rules that the children know. They know what the expectations are, they know what they can and can't do, they know that those things are set out there are to help them with their learning, and it's very transferable inside and outside.
Fantastic. So your foundation phase staff has actually set it up for you, and that's what you really need to try and instill in your Key Stage 2 staff, the fact that this children are already trained. You just need to continue that on and make sure that they're aware of those, and that if you've got the same expectations for your learners in different locations, then they will perform. That's what you're instilling in your students all the time. So if you do have a lack of confidence, once you've done this audit, just trying to impart some information, getting them to observe what goes on in foundation phase, training your learners, help them to see they can, take what they like outside just to get them used to being outside. So if you want to almost do a progression of getting them better, more confidence, so let them take learning outside to start with. And when they feel confident with that, then try and use the resources in the outside to do a proper outdoor learning. So kind of, give them small tasks, give them something really simple to do, that's just going to improve their confidence. So they realize when they go outside, it's like, oh, actually, this isn't as hard as I thought it would be. So start with taking, really basic things, doing a little mini lease hunt or a data collection activity. But really importantly, when they do those, They then evaluate how the session went. So they identify that actually they do have the skills to do this. And if they identify issues, they can then upskill by looking at foundation phase or try and get some training and find out how they can reduce those problems. But yeah, use what you've got to inspire, especially your foundation phase staff. So we're going to leave the skills now, but I want to identify something which is really important. And I found it an awful lot in people undertaking forest school training. I know this isn't about forest school, this is about outdoor learning. But one big problem with schools is the lack of succession. And succession we mean is you've got the skills, you are the outdoor learning professional in your school, you're brilliant at it, you leave, and then suddenly nobody does it anymore because it was, oh, but Miss did it. And yeah, we just left it to her to do. So consider when you're trying to build on this journey so that you're improving and embedding your outdoor learning in the new curriculum, consider bringing in some form of succession. And I've got some ideas here. And again, don't come up with a new thing you've never done before. Work on what you do already. And there's so much in terms of succession that you're doing because of the new curriculum as well, and maybe the way you work, because there is so much in school skill sharing that you must do because there isn't any training or any funding for training. So one thing I would suggest is doing an apprenticeship model. So if you are becoming an expert in outdoor learning, bring somebody else along with you so you can work together, so you can both start to adapt either your curriculum or any activities or creating resource boxes or developing these audits, any of this, bring someone along with you so it's not just one person's responsibility. Team teaching. I know this can work in schools if you've got enough staff and it's happening already, but why not try and integrate the outdoor learning into that team teaching as well, so that again you can show best practice, or you can trial things, you can look at how it works with your school your children, but also with your school grounds. You're testing things out, and team teaching helps with that because somebody can observe, somebody else can do the teaching, and you can say, oh yeah, no, I know you went to that location for this, but little Johnny just snuck around that back of that wall, so we need to make sure we got better eyes on people and things like that. So if you've got two people teaching, that can really help with that. Collaborative planning, especially if you can do it across phase, then again, you know what your students have done in foundation phase, and you're building on that in terms of outdoor learning to get to our Key Stage 2. I'm doing a whole session on planning and differentiation and progression, because I find with outdoor learning, the highest level of skills in a school in terms of outdoor learning is in foundation phase. And that goes for the children. And then when they go to Key Stage 2, they actually lose their skills in outdoor learning. So progression in outdoor learning doesn't actually happen. You get to a point, your highest level is in foundation phase, and then it drops down. So if you collaboratively plan, you will know where the students are in terms of outdoor learning in foundation phase, and you can build on that. And then teaching trios or whatever you use that allows you to share best practice. Again, try and bring some outdoor learning into that as well. Okay, so all right, how are we looking for time? Okay, so if anyone can put on the chat, or if anyone wants to say, you don't have to write it down, you can take your mic off and speak if you like. Anyone think they've got an idea of ways in which they can collaborate to share best practice that could be helpful for somebody else to look at? So ways in which you might be able to transfer, you might be doing it at the moment. So if anyone wants to jump in there, just go for it.
I've set up I don't know if this is what you mean, but I've set up a shared drive so that the training that you're giving to me now, I can then pass on to all the other teachers in the school, so everybody's going to be a part of this training, even though it's only me attending.
Fantastic. Well, that's it. You can then work them, because if you're going to do your skills audit, they'll know where you're coming from. You're not just suddenly saying, fill this in. So yeah, it's upskilling them and empowering them as well. So that's great. And yeah, I should say about the Padlet that I've put on, all the Padlet stuff, which is at the end of the PowerPoint. That's if you've got any resources that you want to share on a T drive at home in your school, then there's lots on there that you can use as well. So yeah, sharing resources is a fantastic way of doing it. Brilliant. Okay, right. So the last thing we are looking at in terms of our audit is we're auditing our equipment. Okay, oh, come back. And I would suggest that your biggest resource, of course, that you've got in your school is your teachers, followed by your outdoor space. The last thing is your equipment. So do not spend a load of money on a load of equipment because you don't necessarily need it. You can use what you've got already. And there's nothing worse than spending a lot of money on a load of equipment that doesn't actually have isn't fit for purpose. So what we're going to be thinking about is how do you audit your resources and how do you make sure that equipment is actually useful for outdoor learning? So there's two ways that I suggest you can do this. So first of all, look at your equipment that you've got. So look in your science cupboard, and try and find things that you probably haven't seen for a long time, because there were lots of initiatives where National Trust and other organizations donated a lot of outdoor learning stuff, and then it got put in the back of a cupboard. So find it, try and find that equipment. And then when you find that equipment, mind map how you're going to use it outside. So you can literally look at your piece of equipment and say, right, I can use that for teaching maths, because say it's a tape measure. I can use it for teaching maths. And so it can be in a maths box, but I can also use it for teaching area. So it's for teaching mapping skills as well. So it's used in humanities. So identify if it's cross-curricular and also if it's going to be useful outside. That's one way of doing it. Another way is to plan your outdoor activity and then find out what materials and equipment you would need to undertake that activity and then search for that. And then if you haven't got it, think, right, is this vital or is this something that I can work around? So two different ways of you finding the uses of it. Then if you've got equipment that you want to buy, make sure it fits in with the use that you're going to have outdoors. Okay, so for example, it's got to be robust. iPads and Chromebooks. iPads, great outdoors, but yes, we need to have our tough cover on them. If it's waterproof, even better. You also need to make sure that if you take your iPads outside, you've got apps downloaded, because if you go into your school grounds, chances are your Wi-Fi doesn't go that far. And if you suddenly go, oh yeah, we're going to use this app, and half the iPads don't have that, you'll have to go back in to download them. So planning those as well. And also some apps don't work if you haven't got Wi-Fi. So making sure that it's actually going to work in the environment that you're using. Also think about other sources. You may be able to get donations from parents, donations from organizations. Secondary school humanities and science departments are very good at lending out equipment. If you've got a gardening club or an eco club, everything they use is going to be an outdoor learning resource. So consider, where those are, so you know where those resources are, and they're in a useful place that you can get to while you're in school. You don't have to spend a lot of money on equipment, and you will find that so much of your equipment, like your skills, are transferable from inside school to outside. So before you buy any equipment, think about, is it cross-curricular? Is it going to be a really good investment of my money? And is it going to provide opportunities to teach an awful lot of things? Some other things, such as, there are some equipments that I will suggest you get. So these are just a list of recommendations that you should find, even if you haven't got them. And some of them are ones that you can make yourself. So for example, outdoor resources boxes. I know some of you were talking about that in the breakout rooms. Now, if you look at this amazing one here from Cozy, this outdoor maths shed, that looks absolutely amazing. That will cost you a fortune. And realistically, are you going to likely to use all of that equipment? You do not have to make it too complicated. So here we go, some outdoor learning boxes. That's what you need for outdoor learning. It has in it what you need, and you place them where you can use them in the outdoors. So thinking about what is useful for your key stage, for your location, for your activities, you can make them topic-based or you could make them AOLE-based. Just think about where you locate them so that they're easily accessible. And again, train your students so they know where to go to get that. The other resources, the most important ones, are actually ones that you are going to make. And I don't mean you as teachers, I mean you as a school. And a lot of those are going to be part of your teaching. So thinking about Mapping your school is a fantastic activity to do with your Key Stage 2. It also provides you with an amazing resource that you can use for the whole school. So creating a map of the school by using tape measures, by measuring area, by using Google Earth like we did to the start with, but then also making it to scale by using trundle wheels, etc. You can then make a map of the school, which you can then use for any of your other activities. Creating outdoor trails. So this could be a maths trail, this could be a literacy trail, but again, it's something you cannot download, you cannot buy, because it's only specific and bespoke to your grounds. So if you go on your map and you find a location, you could put grids on it, so you could find put out some, and then the answer to that sum will get you to one of the coordinates for your next location for your next activity. The next activity location has benches. You ask the question, how many people can sit on these benches? And then answer to that question will get them to another location. So this is something you cannot buy. You will have to actually develop it in your own time or with your students. Another thing that I would advise you to create or start creating is a long-term data set. So think about things that you're measuring all the time, or you could be measuring in your school grounds all the time. Thinking about microclimate. So that's the weather, temperature, wind speed, rain, all of that you could measure and keep a database. And then you can use that for year on year. And you can literally look at global climate changes in your school grounds over the last 5 years, because you're actually creating your own data. Also things like tree data, measuring the size and the age of trees. If you've planted trees, then you can measure the height of them. You can see their growth rate. Harvest data if you're planting and then you're growing crops, and then you measure the kilograms. You can look at cost benefit analysis, how much profit you've made. Also a species list for your school grounds. Every time anyone does a species count, either plants or mini beasts, you keep that data and you start to build a picture, and you can then create an identification guide for your school grounds, so that when nursery goes out and they take this Twinkle ID guide and they don't find half of it and they get really annoyed because they haven't ticked everything off, it's because it's not your school grounds. If you make one that's your school grounds, you know that all of those animals or plants are actually there. And also bringing in some loose parts. Don't cost anything, but if you do have a concrete jungle, it's useful to bring in things like sticks and cones. Easy way to do that. Homework, everyone bring in a pine cone, and then you have 30 pine cones already for your resource, and you keep them in school. So those are recommendations that you either develop or that you find in your school ground or school cupboards. Next things, I'm going to recommend some ones that you might want to purchase, and I do apologize for the blatant plug. I've developed some outdoor challenge cards, which are for Key Stage 2. They are for independent learning, but you can also use them for lower school with some help with TAs. And they're based on the 6 AOLEs. And there's a little video there just showing you them. And they're to help you to use your outdoors as a resource, and you can use them in any location. Some of them do need trees, but if you've got any outdoor space, you can use these, and they can go into your resource boxes as well. You also may have the OEIP outdoor cards, these ones here in the middle, the outdoor learning cards. There's some for orienteering, bouldering, journeying, and team building. And some of those are really well done as well, really useful. And if you've done training of them, that helps. They've also got some environmental cards as well, which aren't quite as detailed, I don't think, but they're pretty good as well. Other things that I would recommend you purchase: matte laminates. If you buy matte laminates instead of gloss laminates, you can write on them in pencil. So you can actually take them outside and write in the rain. Also clipboards. You really, if you getting Key Stage 2 out and you want to write anything down, you really need a set of clipboards. Tough waterproof cases, I've said, for iPads. Weather station equipment is useful. Aldi and Lidl sometimes do those, so you can get hold of those quite cheaply. Rain gauges you can make, but wind meters you can get for cheap. And tape measures, really useful. You can go to IKEA and borrow them, or you can buy some, but really useful for an awful lot of activities. Right, okay, got through that first. So ideas for your outdoor learning resource boxes. What I would like to do, I'm going to just pick on Anne-Marie again. I wondered if you could just share what you put in your outdoor learning boxes, and then if anyone else has, I'll ask them. So Anne-Marie, would you mind what you what have you put in your outdoor learning boxes that you think would be useful for other people?
Yeah, well, we've got the outdoor learning cards, Dawn's cards, which are excellent. We've split them into foundation phase and key stage 2. As Dawn said, the foundation phase ones can be used with a TA or a teacher. We found them very useful to be used in PPA. If you were wondering where to fit it in with everything else going on, whoever picks up your PPA can use that. So just a little bit of housekeeping there that's quite useful, and we found it works well. So depending on which box we've got some for expressive arts. We've got things like chalks, we've got thermometers, we've got clipboards, whiteboards, we've got magnifying glasses. We've put some loose bits, as Dawn referred to, in some of the boxes, just because if you're going out to do a full planned outdoor learning session, then you can find them. But if you just want your older children to be independent and go just outside the classroom, depending on what area you've got, then you're going to need those loose bits in the box ready. Tape measures. We've put, I can't think now. We did put some sort of like the older Kindles that we had and things, if they wanted to scan some QR codes, if there was something we knew they might need to research to help with their outdoor learning. So we've put QR codes in some of them.
It was Lego. We put Lego in them. There's measuring cups, tape measures. There was all sorts in the different boxes.
Yeah,
I think you mentioned chalks and stuff like that.
Containers to collect water if they needed to. Basically, we read through the cards, and whenever we thought the children may need, and if they were using them as a grab box, we emptied all of the cupboards in school and had a mass. We had an inset day, everything out of everyone's rooms and cupboards. So some things, if they involved weigh-in, they've got weights in there. So they've got standard and non-standard weights in there. If it involved time or looking at something, there's timers in there, or they might just be clocks in there. So we tried to think of the things so they could be used straight away. And obviously in there, there's suggested resources that you use with them. But then the children could then go and access anything else if they needed it as well. But we just felt if everything they needed was in that box to start, it wouldn't be something that would stop them from doing the learning. It was just a good starting point.
The other thing was that we've got sets of clipboards available in all classes, so they are absolutely essential, aren't they? Because as soon as you get outdoors, you have to have a clipboard. You know, even if it's one per group, it's just an essential piece of kit, isn't it? We didn't put those in the boxes, or we kept those separate, but everyone knows how to access them.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, both of you. Yeah, the other thing I would say, with clipboards, obviously clipboards vital for writing outside, but if you are using words outside or numbers and you want them to move things around, then if you can put them onto something that isn't a piece of paper, so on stones or on bits of wood, that can make it much more robust outside, because little bits of paper don't work outside. It's either on a clipboard or you don't bring paper out. Never bring your books outside. So if you're talking about words, like writing sentences and you want words to move, or looking at numbers, you're doing sums outside, put them on stones, you can buy them, but get some stones from the beach, but get some wood and just paint them on, and just make sure that they're waterproof paint. So I definitely suggest something like that. Has anybody else got any outdoor learning boxes that they've developed with anything on it? Anything they want to add that wasn't in any of those? Nope. Oh, fantastic. But hopefully that's given you some ideas for outdoor learning boxes. Last thing in our aims, we've got time, good, is about how to make the best use of your grounds all year round. So it's very tempting to go out when it's lovely and sunny. And I know the weather today was pretty horrendous and you've got to be pretty hardcore to go out to do outdoor learning. But I've got a little video here, it's only 7 minutes, but this video is to give you some ideas of how to use the outdoors when the weather is not best. Now, obviously, this isn't something you can plan for. So something you can't put in your long-term plan, I'm going to go and measure the rain. But thinking about the topics that you're choosing for different terms, if you work out what the conditions are going to be like outside, or probably going to be like then, and pick your topics so that they match, it makes much more sense, and you're much more likely to be able to be prompted by the weather and actually say, right, okay, it's raining, great, we're doing the rainforest, right, out we go, we're going to lie under a tree and we're going to see what it's like to be in a rainforest. Whereas if you decide I'm going to do the Arctic in the summer term, it's going to be very hard to do outdoor learning to get them to try and visualize what it's like in the Arctic. So picking the topics you're doing based on what you've got outside is going to be one helpful thing, but also I've got just some little activities. So I'm just going to put this on. Hopefully the sound will be better than last time. I have changed the settings. So it's just 7 minutes, and then that's the last thing, and then we'll just do the bit on the homework. So
this video is to help you to make the best use of your school grounds throughout the year. Hopefully, the school ground audit that you've undertaken will help you to identify the best muster points and the locations to undertake activities in different weather conditions. But be prompted by the weather. For example, you might have a heavy frost and be able to find some frost shadows, or you might have a light sprinkling of snow, which enables you to go out and do some tracking, or use the cold temperature to create your own ice sculptures or ice decorations. Obviously, that's not something you can put in a long-term plan, but embrace the opportunity provided by the weather conditions you have. This is especially true for setting the scene for stories and inspiring creative writing with reference to the experience that students have outside. Let them be exposed to the weather, really listen and feel how the weather affects their mood and how it impacts on the environment. The rain provides a fantastic opportunity for recording sound to make a water song. Think about all the different noises and the different sounds that are made as the water lands on different obstacles, maybe on the roof, on the leaves of the trees, or on different materials that are around you on the ground. If you want to make some paintings outside, you can use spices and herbs and put them on paper and then let the rain change them and turn it into a rain painting. You can do the same with powder paint all over the yard. Try following a raindrop as it takes a wander around your school grounds and see if you can map the journey of the water as it comes down from the sky and around the ground and then back to the sea. You can see what part your school ground makes in the water cycle. Find out where the water stores are, where the flows are between the different places. Watch the puddles evaporate. See which puddle evaporates fastest. Write the story of a raindrop. Once you follow the raindrop and mapped it through your school grounds, you can use this for inspiration for your story. When the rain stops and the ground dries, a nice activity is CSI Puddles. This is a science investigation where you set up a series of buckets around your schoolyard and you drop different items of different weights and different heights into different buckets to create a splash of water around the bucket. You then have to task your learners to try and work out which object was dropped in which bucket and from what height to create that puddle shape. A lot of problem solving there, including lots of maths, working out area, perimeter, and also height. If you've built shelters, then the rain and the wind can really test your shelters for effectiveness. Either get your learners to go inside in the rain and see if they get wet, or place kitchen towel inside and see how dry it stays. There are some great storybooks out there you can read outside in the rain. If you don't want to get wet, then read it under a tree canopy or where you can hear the sound of the water. Examples of great books are The Rainy Day by Anna Melbourne and Sarah Gill, or Rain by Sam Asher. Or if you want to look at the water cycle, then The Rhythm of the Rain by Graham Baker Smith is a fantastic one. You can also undertake cloud watching, looking at the different clouds, trying to work out what they are, and using that to predict the weather and see if you're correct. You can also look out for animals that actually like the rain, such as the worms. You can do some worm charming. Try and collect the rain. You can use rain gauges, such as this. You can place it in different places or different locations in your school grounds to see which location actually gets the most rain. So you can put some underneath the tree canopy, some out in the yard, or maybe in the middle of the field and see which one actually collects the most water. You could also investigate interception by plants by sheltering under different trees to see which is the best at actually keeping you dry while the rain is falling. Testing how waterproof clothes actually are by getting different materials and going outside and seeing how wet you actually get. Try developing some playground paint and then you can test it outside in the rain to see if it works. You can use the rain to actually make you visualize what it's like to be in a tropical rainforest. Lie down on a tarp underneath the trees as the rain's falling down, and they can really feel what it's like to be in that rainforest. This is nice background to the Explorer's book by Catherine Rundle. One of the best things you can do though is to create a weather station and undertake a wind investigation. You could make your own windmills or make some wind vanes and investigate the direction and the speed in which the wind is blowing in different locations around your school grounds. You could also build and fly kites and see which is the best location for that. You can also investigate seed dispersal, making some model seeds and using that wind to transfer those seeds and see which design transfers the seed the furthest away. A great thing to also do in a windy day is to investigate windbreaks. Now there are two types of windbreaks. You've got impermeable ones and permeable. The permeable ones are things like hedges that allow the wind to go through, but they slow it down. Impermeable ones are things like walls and buildings. So the impermeable windbreaks actually force the wind up and over the object, and it comes down the other side, changing the direction of the wind. So you can investigate these in your school grounds and see what you've got there. Coal can provide great inspiration for Arctic stories. Also the opportunity to investigate insulation. So you could do experiments outside by measuring how long it takes for ice to melt with different insulators around them and looking at wind chill. You can also make this more meaningful by testing winter clothing and measuring the temperature inside the clothing as the learners are wearing it. On hot days, you can measure the absorption of radiation by different colours by investigating using either strip thermometers or just measuring how hot different materials are outside. You could also place ice cubes on top of different coloured materials and see how long it takes for each one to melt. If it's a sunny day, then why not build a sundial? You can see how the shadows are changing throughout the day. You can also see how they change throughout the year, if they get longer and shorter at different times of the year. And thermometers are really useful to measure the air temperature and the ground temperature in different places in your school grounds. If it is really hot, then again, that's inspiration for stories about places like deserts. So get them into a really hot place in the sun and tell them about the sweltering heat in the desert. If it's so hot, you can actually use the sun to create bits of art by using sun paper. So place items which have got great outlines on top of your sun paper in the sun, and you'll get that outline imprinted on the paper. If it's really hot, you can even use a magnifying glass to burn into paper. And the challenge there is the perseverance required to hold that magnifying glass at exactly the right location. Or you can try and get your students to build something to hold the magnifying glass in the right location. I hope this has given you some ideas and you're inspired now to embrace the weather instead of avoiding it. Because if we try to avoid the weather, it means that you're really restricting how much time you can actually spend in your outdoor learning.
Okay, well, hope that was useful. That video will be sent for you as well, but an awful lot of those ideas were from my YouTube channel. So if you want to know how to do nearly all of those activities, go on the YouTube channel and look at the challenges there, the outdoor learning challenges, and it explains nearly all of them in more detail. So just got 2 minutes to finish off with what I'm going to leave you to do if you want to have a go at your task. I'll be emailing you this, but also if you look at the, if I stop sharing this, if you look at the Padlet, you can see that that's the Padlet that I've set up. And if you look at the first column, the welcome column, if you go down, you'll see session 2 auditing. And this is the sheet that I'll be sending you. So it's got the 5 tasks that you might want to try. And obviously we've got looking at the practice and provision audit. So that's this audit here, which gets you to think about what you do at the moment in your school grounds. That's all of your staff. Then secondly, you've got the skills and attitude. So again, asking the rest of your staff what their skills are and how they feel about going outdoors, and trying to come up with some solutions to any problems. And then I've got just a sheet here to help you to come up with a wish list of resources, but really importantly, just not writing down everything you'd like, but then identifying how you're going to use it, why you need it for outdoor learning, and have you already got it? So look in the cupboard and see if you've got it. And then identifying any training that you need based on the skills audit that you've done of your staff, who needs it in your staff, have a look if you can find any providers, see what the price is, see if you can use your staff or you can share with other schools so that it's free, and identify what skills gaps you're going to be filling with that training, and also see if you can bring it into the wider SDP or your school improvement plan. So again, you can get funding from your governors because you can identify that it was something that's going to make your school even better. And so that is what I'm going to leave you with. And if you have any questions, you've got about 10 seconds. So if anybody would like to say anything. No? Fantastic. So don't forget, if you've enjoyed today, or please do fill in the feedback form. It will be sent to you with the QR code with the presentation. But also our next session is session 3, looking at barriers to outdoor learning and how to overcome them. So again, if you find a lot of skills missing because it's confidence or that you've identified some barriers, then hopefully our next session on the 3rd of November will give you some tips and tricks to make outdoor learning easier for those staff that have a lack of confidence or you're finding some barriers. So that's it for today, unless anyone has any questions. Sorry, it was fast and furious. There's an awful lot to get through just on this one. So hopefully you've enjoyed that, and any feedback would be very welcome, and hopefully see you after half term, and have a great half term. Try and have some rest. So when
Thank you very much.
Sorry, I missed that.
So thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah,
Thanks, Dawn.
you're welcome. Have a nice break over half term.
And you.